Hey everybody, it's the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm Aaron Maté, sitting in for Jimmy here with Americans comedian Kurt Metzger, and we are happy to be joined by our next guest. Sabby Sabs is a Boston-based activist, social critic, and host of the Sabby Sabs podcast, which is part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. Sabrina, great to see you back on the Jimmy Dore Show.
Hi, Aaron.
So we've been covering this upheaval in the House with Republicans using their leverage, a group of rebel Republicans using their leverage to extract concessions in order to give their vote over to Kevin McCarthy for House Speaker. And they've gone through multiple rounds now of rejecting McCarthy, failing to give him the number of votes that he needs. As we're recording this now, afterwards, there is supposed to be a new vote, and maybe that will get resolved. Maybe finally this will come to an end. But the point is that Republicans have been using their leverage to extract concessions from the House Speaker. And there are many things on that list that progressives would oppose, including apparently cutting food stamps and other issues that would further militarize the border. But there are some issues, actually, that some progressives could get behind. And this was just reported by Bloomberg. Check this out. The emerging deal Kevin McCarthy is discussing to make him House Speaker would propose a roughly $75 billion cut in defense spending. So these rebellious Republicans who are holding out their votes for McCarthy are demanding, apparently, a $75 billion cut. Now, we don't know if this is just a stunt or if this will actually materialize, but this apparently is one of the asks being made. It's at least on the table. And as Bloomberg notes, the proposal likely will spur a backlash from congressional defense hawks. And yes, this backlash is being caused not by congressional progressives demanding a cut in spending. It's coming from House Republicans on the far right who are demanding such a cut. And here's some more information on it from Responsible Statecraft. The cut is reportedly part of an emerging deal that would cap government spending at 2022 levels, meaning that it would return defense spending to $782 billion, a sharp drop from this year's allotment of $857 billion. So in fact, this is a major cut, and it could be even bigger than $75 billion. If any deal goes through, it would still represent one of the largest single-year reductions in the Pentagon's budget in history. And here's Matt Gaetz sort of taunting McCarthy. He said, McCarthy's losing it. He texted one of my colleagues who didn't vote for him, I am ready to fund an endless war. I'm assuming this is in addition to Ukraine. And here's Jimmy commenting on this, Jimmy Dore. He says, holy S, the right wing of the Republican Party is further left on war than AOC and the entire Democratic Party. The fraud squad and Bernie Sanders are 100% war pigs. This is what the squad was supposed to be doing 2 years ago, but instead they lied about healthcare activists. # force the vote. And I said this, wow, this $75 billion cut will almost offset the more than $100 billion that congressional progressives have approved for the Ukraine proxy war so far. So progressives are ceding not only the use of their leverage, but also now an attempt to curb military spending to the GOP far right. So let me bring in Sabby Sabs. As you're observing all this, and now even seeing this apparent effort, and we have to say apparent because we don't know if this will actually go through, but this apparent attempt by Republicans to use their leverage to impose this massive cut to military spending, $75 billion. What's your reaction?
Well, I 100% approve of reducing the defense budget, so I can get behind that. I have a little bit of data for you that I think you may find interesting as well. If we go back to the Iraq War from 2003 till 2011, in 2003, the defense budget was $440 billion. In 2011, it was $752 billion, and it has continued to increase since 2011. Now, the current defense budget is over $800 billion. Now, you tell me, are we at war? So why do we have a higher defense budget now than we did during the Iraq War? So this is something that I think has needed to change for quite a while. I hope that this does go through. So I heavily support that. And I would say they could probably even cut more if they wanted to.
Absolutely. And follow-up question, why are House Republicans the ones pushing for a major military spending cut and not House progressives who throughout the past year have been voting in lockstep to fund the Ukraine proxy war, more than $100 billion so far?
Well, I do know some of the House Republicans are heavily against the amount of funding that's been going towards Ukraine. So that could be part of it. But the other piece here, too, is this is just a daily reminder to me, like what the left used to be in this country,
Yep.
how the left used to be anti war and against these bloated defense budgets here. And we've watched the Democratic Party move further and further to the right. So this is a big part of the problem. We should be championing this. The Democrats in the House should be leading this. But again, like the tides have changed. So it's crazy to me. And I said this to Glenn Greenwald. I'm a little bit jealous because I feel like this is exactly what the progressives in the House should be doing. And we're seeing these things being done by politicians that are on the right in the House. So it's crazy, Aaron. This is crazy.
Well, here's some background on some of these House Republicans who are withholding their vote from McCarthy on their record when it comes to opposing wars. And it comes from Eric Sperling. He is the head of a group called Just Foreign Policy, which is a great group in D.C. on Capitol Hill that tries to lobby for a sensible foreign policy in which we're not always bombing and sanctioning people. So this is what Eric Sperling says. Could the GOP revolt actually help end endless wars? This thread shows how key anti-McCarthy GOP members often join left-wing Democrats to oppose war. In 2018, Speaker Paul Ryan blocked a Yemen vote. More members of the Freedom Caucus on the Rules Committee may prevent moves like that. And this thread from his group, Just Foreign Policy, explains. So in 2022, congressional progressives introduced the Yemen War Powers Resolution to end unauthorized U.S. hostilities. Anti-McCarthy leaders Andy Biggs and Matt Gaetz were co-sponsors, number 6 and 7, listed between Schiff, Khanna, McGovern, Lee, who are all Democrats. Congressmember Gosar also joined. Most House Democrats support Congressmember Bowman's yearly vote requiring the White House to get Congress's approval for the military operation in Syria. And you know what I should say? We've been spending the show today criticizing progressives. I have to note that Congressmember Bowman, unlike the Democrat he defeated, Elliot Engel, has been pushing at least this one sensible measure on Syria. We're basically asking for congressional approval of the U.S. occupation of Syria because we don't talk about it very much in this country, but the U.S. right now is occupying 1/3 of Syria with the aim of stealing its oil and its fuel to deny that to the majority of the Syrian people who live under government-controlled areas. And that's the government that the U.S. tried to overthrow in a 10-year dirty war. So Jamal Bowman has been pushing this measure. And here's what Just Foreign Policy says about the Republicans that have joined him on that. He says last year, 25 Republicans joined him to call for just a vote on congressional authorization for the troop presence in Syria. This includes anti-McCarthy voices Biggs, Boebert, Cloud, Gaetz, Good, Gosar, Rosendale, and Roy. And he goes on, the votes on this bill to end unauthorized military action in Syria came after longtime progressive war powers champion Barbara Lee partnered with Andy Biggs, who wrote to Biden questioning the legal basis for unauthorized airstrikes. The progressive left and anti-McCarthy right have also put politics aside to support the executive when it does the right thing and ends unauthorized war. For example, Biggs and Gosar joined AOC, Khanna, Ted Lieu, and Ilhan Omar to back Trump's Syria withdrawal in 2019. And that was the withdrawal that Trump ordered, but then his generals under him simply ignored his orders because we forgot in this country that it's not the president who actually is the commander-in-chief. It's a national security state, and they weren't ready to withdraw from Syria because they wanted to punish Syria's people a little bit more and still try to overthrow Syria's government. So that's an example highlighted here of the ways in which, you know, the anti-McCarthy right and the progressive left have actually worked together on anti-war measures. And now, Sabby, what we're talking about is basically this instance where it looks like some of these members are using the leverage they have to seek $75 billion as a reduction from the defense budget. And again, we don't know if that will actually happen, but at least they're asking, which I think is significant.
I agree. My only concern is I wonder if this is going to pass in the Senate. And the reason why I bring that up is because we just saw recently, Bernie Sanders was supposed to bring the measure to the floor to end the war in Yemen. And then he received pressure from Joe Biden, and then he decided to pull back. But it's good to see that they're trying to work together on something, particularly these war issues as well. My only concern is if it's going to work in the Senate.
Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there.